Good afternoon, folks. I'm sorry. It's been a crazy couple of days. I had just gotten a new computer and turns out it's a piece of shit. So it's been a crazy couple of days. I've been trying to get things handled for Clue TV, try to get some new content uploaded. But I wanted to talk to you guys about something called bystander apathy. And this is actually really interesting. This is something that I'm going to go into a little more deeply on Clue TV itself, but I wanted to sort of do like a refresher for those of you that, kind of pay attention to these things. Now, this is a case that was really groundbreaking on many levels, and one of the main reasons was the launching of the real study into what is now called bystander apathy. And that is the case of Catherine Genovese. Pardon me, really hard. Now, Catherine Genovese was a woman in her 20s, and she lived in Brooklyn. And in 1964, she was going home. And, here, let me just give you a real quick synopsis on the case. Let's see. 28-year-old Catherine Genovese was returning home. She turned off the lights of her car, locked the door, and started to walk the 100 feet to the entrance of her apartment. Now, this is in a Tudor-style building with stores on the first floor and apartments on the second. The entrance to the apartment is in the rear of the building because the front is rented to retail stores. So Miss Genovese noticed a man at the far end of the parking lot near a 7-story apartment building. She stopped and then she started heading up Austin Street towards Leiferdts Boulevard, where there is a call box to the police precinct in nearby Richmond Hill. Now, see, guys, back in the 60s, she could have used a payphone, but there were call boxes for the police every, so many hundred feet in New York, and that's where she was trying to get to. She got as far as a street light in front of a bookstore before the man grabbed her. She screamed. Lights went on in the 10-story apartment house across the street. Windows slid open. Miss Genovese screamed, "Oh my God, he stabbed me, please help me," and someone from an upper window yelled out, "Let that girl alone." At that time, the assailant looked up at him, he shrugged after fucking stabbing a woman. He shrugged and started walking away down Austin Street towards a white sedan that was parked a short distance away. Miss Genovese struggled to her feet. The lights went out. At the time that the lights went out, the killer turned around and went back to her, and she was now trying to make her way to the side of the building to get to her apartment. And her assailant stabbed her again. She screamed out, "I'm dying." At this time, windows were opened again, lights went on in many apartments, and the assailant got into his car and drove away. Miss Genovese staggered to her feet and started trying to make it to her apartment. She had crawled to the back of the building, and the assailant returned. This time, he found her, and he stabbed her a third time fatally. Now, what makes this case so what the fuck is not just the number of times that the assailant left her alone and took off and then came back and stabbed her again, but there were 38 witnesses in the surrounding apartments that heard or saw the attack, and no one did a thing. Not a fucking thing. One guy shouted out, "Let that girl alone," and that was it. The only person to call the police did so after the fatal blow, so she was already dead. And even when he did call the police, first, he crossed the rooftop to a neighbor's apartment and consulted her before they called the cops. This whole attack took roughly half an hour. That is plenty of time for the police to get to her. Now, after this attack, the guy was caught, by the way. 6 days later, the police arrested Winston Mosley, a 29-year-old business machine operator, and charged him with homicide. Mosley had no previous record. He is married, has 2 children, and owns a home. in South Ozone Park, Queens. When questioned by the police, Mosley also said that he had slain Mrs. Annie Mae Johnson of Jamaica, Queens, and Barbara Kralik of Springfield Gardens. So he was a fucking serial killer, and nobody did a goddamn thing. But this specific case is what started the whole idea of psychologists getting involved in the criminal world. And from this case, these two psychologists started, sort of going, okay, we need to test this and see what the fuck went on here. So, at NYU in New York, they started doing this study. And what it was they, put out a call for market research students. And these students would show up at the laboratory one at a time. And they would be handed a questionnaire, a bogus questionnaire, by the lab assistant, who was female. And they would sit down and start filling it out. And she'd go into the office next door and you could hear her working. And at some point during the course of the bogus survey, they would hear her fall and call out for help. Now, when it was just one person in the room, 70% of the participants in this bogus survey would run to help her. So then they said, okay, let's see what happens when there's two. So they brought in two students instead of one. And they thought, obviously, this is going to go up because there's somebody there watching them. In fact, the opposite happened. It went down from 70% to 40%. Then, really to stir shit up, the researchers decided, okay, let's see what happens when we have a plant. So it would be one student and then one laboratory assistant posing as a student, who would purposely do nothing. And they discovered that being in the presence of a passive bystander drops intervention down to 10%. So it went from 70% when they were the only bystander to 40% when there was two or more to 10. Are you fucking kidding me, folks? And this was actually something that the police noted in this case when they went around all the witnesses to go like, what the fuck is wrong with you? The common answer was, I thought somebody else would do it. Or I was afraid. And they couldn't even state what they were actually afraid of. They were in their own homes. The doors were locked. It's not like you would have known who called the police. But that was the general answer, was those two answers. Either I figured somebody else would handle it, or I was scared. Are you fucking kidding me, folks? This is no bueno on many levels. And this is something that John and I and the rest of the Clue TV crew have tried to stress to people. This is why we do what we do. Because we refuse to be silent bystanders. We will be damned if we don't say something. Because if we don't say something, who else is not going to say something? Might as well start the noise. All right, folks, I've got a lot of other research that I want to get out to you all today. I also have some new, longer episodes to upload to Clue TV. So don't forget to subscribe to me here on YouTube. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, MamaPhoenix6. I will put the fan page for Clue TV down below in the description. And don't forget to boogie on over to cluetv.net, see what we got going on over there. Thank you all very much for watching. We'll see you soon.